Hello, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Westside Congregation. We are glad that you are joining us today here in the sanctuary or online or on the computer or whatever you call it, anywhere you are. I am Kathy Wright, the Service Associate for today. Our speaker is the Reverend Dr. Nancy Hitt, our Consulting Minister. Our program is entitled, Service is Our Prayer. This is a direct quote from the Aspirations that we affirm each week. Today we will pursue the meaning of that particular phrase. What exactly does that mean? What are we committing to when we say those words? We have based our program on principles 1 and 2. The inherent worth and dignity of every person, and justice, equity, and compassion in human relationships, along with source number 2. Oops, sorry about that. Along with source number 2. Words and deeds of prophetic women and men, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. These are enormous commitments for us to make. We hope that your understanding of them in your own life and that of our shared community is enriched by our exploration of them today. Our thanks to Jan Walters for greeting us, to Dana Sanford for monitoring our sound system, and to Steve Boyani for videotaping this. A special mention for providing the materials for the Moment for All Ages goes to Michelle Boyani. Here are the announcements for the week. Real the dog needs paper again. And the box for Real is outside the social hall on the porch. So please, if you got some extra papers, bring them in and put them in there. Our donation bins for Storehouse West are almost empty, which means there's plenty of room for your donation of non-perishable food. Our AWARE UUWC program met for the second time yesterday. This is the Alliance of White Anti-Racists Everywhere. Yesterday we learned about microaggressions and discussed their presence and influence in our own lives. Our next session is Saturday, October 10th. It's 2 weeks, not 1 week, 2 weeks. Our program is titled Actor Ally, thank you, I knew that wasn't right, Ally, Accomplice. It meets at 10:30 in the social hall. Everyone is invited to attend. You do not have to have attended the prior sessions. Our social justice team meets today at 12:30 in the green room. If you are interested in our Little Free Library project or our anti-racist program or any other issue of social justice you would like to see Westside address, please join us. This is an entirely voluntary group that works to address issues of social justice in the larger Westside community of Rio Rancho and Albuquerque with the help of our whole congregation. Is there any other announcements that anybody needs to make? Melinda?
I just want to say that the date for the next AWARE meeting, Saturday, is actually the 9th, not the 10th.
Yes, it is my fault.
Okay.
Oh, the 9th. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, please stand as you are able to join us now in lighting our chalice. The words are in your bulletin or on your screen. Our chalice flame bursts into life, showing us where we are needed, how we can help, and what needs to be done. Inspired by its light and encouraged by its warmth, we work to build a healthy world together. Shalom. Please join me in affirming our aspirations. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Shalom.
I invite you now to open your hymnal to number 188. And we are not going to do this as a round this morning. There aren't quite enough of us to pull that off. However, we will definitely sing it through twice. I'm getting positive head nods. All right. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Thank you. Please be seated. Some of you may remember from a few years ago, or may be familiar from other sources, that the word Ubuntu is an Nguni word that refers to behaving well toward others, or specifically acting in ways that benefit the community. It describes a way of thinking about what it means to be human. It includes compassion and all the great human virtues. So as we enter into our moment for centering today, I invite you to absorb that meaning as we center ourselves in our own human community. Let us sit back in our pew or our chair, relaxed yet upright. Center your head over your heart, over your pelvis. Close your eyes if you are comfortable doing so, or choose a focal point for your gaze. Let your mind go blank. Focus on the rhythm of your breathing. Breathing in fully and deeply. Breathing out completely. Breathing in life. Breathing out tension and conflict. Breathing in and breathing out. Fall into the rhythm of your breath. As stray thoughts intrude, simply breathe them aside. In and out, and in. Into your mind's eye, let an image of the people who support and sustain you grow. It may be small, it may be large. It may include past and present. Who helps you to be you? Who affirms you? Who provides what you need? Who serves you and encourages your growth? Let the faces appear in whatever order they choose to. Into a circle, or a collage, or even a flow sheet. Notice who has been helpful to you in the past. Who helps you now? Sink into the realization of your connectedness to these people. Rejoice in the love that connects you, that enables you, that protects you. Breathe deeply, inhaling all that you are offered. Exhale any residual fear or tension. See if there are others whom you love and support, whose presence in your life brings you joy as you care for them. Breathing fully and deeply, let those who care for you and those whom you care for form a single community. Accept these dual aspects of yourself, caring and being cared for, and know yourself to be fully human, affirmed for the service you give, affirmed by the service you receive. Refocus on your breathing, filling your lungs with life-giving air, then releasing it and relaxing. Breathing in and breathing out. And when you are ready, open your eyes. Shalom. One of the things that helps us to know and understand each other better is the time that we spend sharing our joys and concerns. Some of them are personal. Some of them pertain to the world we live in. All of them matter to all of us, simply because we matter to each other. If you have a joy or concern to share, I will share several with you first, and then Kathy will offer the mic to anyone who would like it. And we will light a candle for each one here in our sanctuary. If you have a candle to light at home, we invite you to light it as we light our last candle here. I have several, both joys and concerns for us this morning. The first would be a joy on Jay Kane's behalf that her exam, the proctored statistics exam for which she had to go to Arizona to take this weekend, is over. And so that part is a joy, and I invite you to hold her in safety as she travels back in your thoughts and prayers. For Nan Porterfield, we have a joy that her surgery was complete, that it went well, and technically I suppose it's a concern, but it's a happy one to have, that we hold her in our thoughts and prayers for continued successful healing. And unfortunately this morning you may have noticed that Bram Cast-Hecht and Roxy are not with us. That's because Bram has had a flare-up of her pancreatitis pain and is home coping with that. So I invite you to hold her also in your thoughts and prayers for healing. Now, if others of you have others, joys and concerns that you'd like to share, hold on. There it is. Thank you.
I'm sorry I forgot to say it during announcements, since Bram's not here. Next Saturday, October 2nd at 11 is the annual pet blessing.
Yes.
And you can bring living pets, you can bring photos of past pets, and we will have a blessing and a memorial for them.
And any live pet needs to be contained safely for its sake and everyone else's. I know, it's no fun, huh?
So I have a joy. Last weekend, Gary and I went camping. We went to this festival in southern New Mexico, up in the mountains where it was green and pretty and it rained. And I was worried that being at high altitude and all the work that goes along with camping activities was going to be too much for him. But it seems to have energized him. He did extremely well and had a good time, so it's pretty happy.
And I'm not sure, but I noticed on Facebook, didn't Sandy also have a surgery this past week of Sandy and Kathy? Nancy might know about that, so.
I think she may have had knee surgery this time
I
also,
saw
yes.
that it went pretty well. She quipped on Facebook, by the time I learn to use these crutches, I'll be healed.
Since we're going through the surgery, I am over it. It was successful. I'm not quite over the healing process, but I'm well into it. I thank you all for your thoughts and prayers.
We will also light a final candle for all of the joys and concerns that we still hold in the privacy of our own hearts. No, we light the red candle. Right. So,
Go use this.
no, there's a big match.
Did I strike it against my teeth?
No, put it in.
I'm sorry, of course. Sorry, it's been a while since I've done this.
So we do light this red candle every week for the victims of racial violence. For every person of every age and race, we stand against the heinous tragedies of racism. May its flame burn in our hearts against injustice and inspire us to become a world with race and without racism. Shalom.
Well, I'm not Bram, so I won't be funny probably, but I get to do the animal ministry, which makes me feel good. And she picked him up. Okay, this is a puppy. It's, this little story's entitled, I Could Chew on This. Squeak, 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 squeak. How come when I bite down on this toy, it doesn't go squeak? Maybe because, as you just screamed, I'm really chewing on your favorite shoe. Or maybe because I really need to get more of it in my mouth. And this is also a puppy. Make the first move. Those who play hard to get, those who play hard to get often don't get got. Okay? Don't beat around the rose bush with your tail between your legs. Make the first move.
So our moment for all ages this morning, Michelle Poyani sent me this lovely Zen story. It is a Zen parable that has no formal title, and seriously, once you hear it, it needs next to no formal explanation. It goes like this. Once upon a time, in a temple nestled in the misty end of the South Hill, lived a pair of monks. One was old and one was young. "What are the differences between heaven and hell?" the young monk asked the learned master one day. "There are no material differences," replied the old monk peacefully. "None at all?" asked the confused young monk. "No, both heaven and hell look exactly the same. They both have a dining hall with a big hot pot in the center, in which some delicious noodles are boiled, giving off an appetizing scent," said the old priest. "The size of the pan and the number of people sitting around the pot are the same in both places. But oddly, each diner is given a pair of meter-long chopsticks and must use them to eat the noodles. And to eat the noodles, one must hold the chopsticks properly at their ends. No cheating is allowed," the Zen master went on to describe to the young monk. "In the case of hell, the people are always starving because no matter how hard they try, they fail to get the noodles into their own mouths," said the old priest. "But isn't that the same as what would happen to the people in heaven?" the junior monk asked. "Not at all, my son. They can eat in heaven because they each feed the person sitting opposite them at the table. You see, that is the difference between heaven and hell," explained the old monk. "It's about service or self." Now, in Chinese culture, it is routine for younger people to serve their elders. Chinese children are always taught to serve others first at the dinner table by taking food from communal dishes and placing it on their elders' plates as a mark of respect. To serve only yourself is rude beyond measure. Table manners the world around are designed to provide community at the table with safety. At Asian tables, I'm sure we've all noticed, there are no knives, only chopsticks. Knives are weapons and are not welcome at the table. In medieval Europe, the knife of a knight or any other person who had one was to be placed on the table horizontally at the top of the plate. Everyone was disarmed. Even today, the way that our knives are shaped as they are for flatware that we're going to sit at the table with a cutting edge only on one side, is a legacy of the ancient practice of disarming while at table. When we set the table, the cutting edge of the knife is properly placed facing the plate, both for ease of use and also protection from accidental injury. The blade faces no one. The first rule of community is always safety. And if you want your meal to be heavenly, the second rule is service.
Gifts of love and commitment, sorry. The line from our aspirations that we will explore later comes into focus every week for us at this time in our service. More often than not, we sing, "From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live." This sums up the dynamics of service. They are the core of our life together. Every single one of us is needed to keep our community healthy, just as we need our community to keep ourselves healthy. For all of your gifts, for all that you do to support our life together, we thank you.
Will you join me in singing our chorus, please? From you I receive, to you I Now I invite you to pick up your hymnal and open in the back to number 637, Standing as We Are Able, and join me in this responsive reading, which, while it was originally written for use during Yom Kippur, one of the Jewish high holy days, it really sums up the process of community. So I wanted us to be able to share this together this morning. I'll read the bold type if you would respond with the italics. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference,
We forgive ourselves and each other, and begin again in love.
for each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for the selfishness which sets us apart and alone,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for losing sight of our unity,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for those and for so many acts both evident and subtle which have fueled the illusion of separateness. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. Thank you. Please be seated. Just go sit up here. So I have both good news and bad news for you this morning. And depending on your point of view, I'm not actually sure which is which. So if you're wondering what the mention of service is our prayer means in our aspirations, let me make one thing perfectly clear. Service is our prayer is not code for UUs don't have to pray, just do good things instead. In order to understand what that phrase means, we need to explore several things. We need to define service, we need to define prayer, and we need to look a little bit at the history of this covenant prayer in our UU tradition. Because it has one, it's not just ours alone. We are one of many churches who use some form of this prayer to define ourselves. It's not always exactly the same, and the details do matter, but it is specifically UU, perhaps especially in the individual adaptations that each congregation makes to it. So first, let's go with the easy stuff. Let's define service. My online dictionary offers this. Service is the action of helping or doing work for someone. It goes on to include assistance or advice given to a customer after a purchase is made, or a system supplying a public need. We still say the service is out when our electricity is not functioning. These definitions apply to service as a noun. If we use the word service as a verb, the dictionary offers us this: to perform routine maintenance or repair work, and the mating practices of heterosexual creatures. That is quite I'm not kidding. That is quite a range of meaning, and I guarantee you we are going to focus on the meaning of the noun because that's how we use it in our aspirations. Notice that service absolutely means doing something. Service is never passive. In fact, we even have a common phrase that makes this distinction clear: lip service. To give lip service to something is to say one thing and then either do nothing or do something else entirely, negating whatever it was you originally said. When we equate service with prayer, we are not regarding either term as passive or empty of any true meaning. Both words are intensely active and very important. Instead of letting any of us off the hook, this phrase keeps us very much on it. It doesn't mean we don't have to pray. It means we have to make it count. So let's take a take a look at a definition of what we mean by prayer. Prayer is a solemn request for help, an expression of thanks, or a conversation addressed to a deity or an object of worship. If you take the divine out of the equation, prayer is defined as an earnest hope or wish. Prayer has many forms, as does service. But unlike service, prayer is a little bit suspect inside these walls. Those of us who find a divine presence of some sort to be part of our spiritual lives are likely to understand prayer as that which connects us to that spiritual reality. Such prayer is often described as a conversation, as part of a relationship with that divine reality. It is sometimes said that prayer is speaking while meditation is listening for the divine. Both speaking and meditation are parts of prayer. For those of us who do not find a divine presence of any sort to be a meaningful part of our spiritual lives, we need to look first at the second part of the dictionary's definition, an earnest hope or wish. The word earnest implies that we really, really, really desire whatever it is we say we are praying for, even if we are not directing that powerful desire to a specific divine source. Now, here's where science can offer us a bridge so that all of us can find a little bit of common ground. Those who pray as part of a spiritual relationship within any variety of traditions often describe their experience as involving an awareness of a spiritual presence or energy. In fact, it's often difficult to describe profoundly spiritual experiences because we lack sufficient descriptive language for that energy. In a pre-atomic age, words failed. If you look at the language of ancient texts and sacred documents, they rely on metaphor and story to try and describe the realities that people encounter in the presence of the spiritual. However, we have a bit of an edge that they didn't have access to. We know that all matter, regardless of whether it is in a solid, liquid, or gaseous state, is made up of atoms. And while we once thought that atoms were simply the very smallest particulate matter that there was, we now know that that's not true. In fact, atoms are made up of energy. Each element in the atomic table has atoms that behave in predictable and identifiable ways. While each element has its own individual pattern, all atoms, and therefore all matter, is ultimately energy. One of the marvelous insights of modern science is this continuity between energy and matter. The more closely we look, the more the same everything is. Not in its larger configuration as molecules and matter, but at its smallest subatomic level, when we are looking at protons, neutrons, electrons, quarks, leptons, and bosons, and those last three, those are whole categories of different kinds of particles and make up other whole lists of subatomic bundles of energy. We don't need to know everything there is to know about subatomic particles, which I, for one, think is a really good thing, because there's an awful lot of intricate information that goes into understanding that. What we do need to know is that we live at the far edge of a continuum of energy. We matter. We are matter, which also means that we are all energy, configured in particular ways. So when we pray, whether to a spiritual being or reality, or whether we earnestly wish, hope, desire, we are dealing with energy. We accept that our prayer has an energy of its own. We don't understand it. We often have trouble accepting it. But even the most atheistic prayer of hope or desire or concern is a matter of focusing our mental energy in a particular way that we still have trouble describing, but that we have some awareness of and we can feel. Sometimes we feel it in powerful ways. Lightning strikes and revelation happens. Our life is changed. Other times, we feel a subtle shift internally or in the air around us. We may be more relaxed. We may describe ourselves as feeling energized. We speak of sending our thoughts and prayers in many circumstances. Now, that's a very amorphous phrase, but both our thoughts and our prayers take energy. In some way, they are energy. All of which is by way of saying that one doesn't have to believe in any particular spiritual reality to pray, to focus our mental and emotional energy and project it outward from ourselves into the universe. And who among us is really qualified to say that the thoughts and prayers of any person are worthless? Just because science can't yet measure their energy or trace their presence and activity doesn't mean it's not real. It just means that we haven't figured it out yet. It wasn't that long ago that the idea of splitting atoms and harnessing the energy released was the stuff of science fiction, with the emphasis on fiction. We here in New Mexico know that atomic energy is real. Not only do we now have nuclear energy, we also have nuclear medicine, and once upon a time, that was unimaginable. So when you use proclaim that something is their prayer, I think we're saying that it is our powerful connection with the universe. We're saying that we are somehow in relationship with all of life through whatever that particular prayerful activity is. Now, remember that our definition of service required action. Service is more than just a good idea. It's a prayer, focused, energetic action. Service is the proof that prayer is at work. Now, having said that, I know that may be hard for some of us to swallow. I know that many of us are not used to thinking this way. But service, the doing, acting, makes our prayer, the desiring, hoping, manifest. It makes it real in our material world. So when we say that service is our prayer, what we're saying is that service is what connects us meaningfully to life, the universe, and all that. Service is where the rubber hits the road. It's where we walk our talk. It's where we practice what we preach. Service is where life gets real in ways that we can see and feel and hear and taste and touch. Service is where the energy of our prayers, of whatever style, matter. Literally, our prayers become service, actions to help or do work for someone. The equation, service is our prayer, explains how we change the world. Because we can. And I'd like to think that we do. Here's the thing. Prayer changes the people who pray. It improves mental health and creates new awareness and the possibility for healthier human lives. It relieves stress and improves physical health. So does service. Studies, and here's science again, confirm that people who engage in service are more connected, in a good way, to others. They experience less stress, less anger, and less anxiety in their lives. They are less depressed and have more self-confidence. People engaged in service to others express a greater sense of purpose, and you're going to love this, they actually have a lower mortality rate than people who are not engaged in service. Service and prayer could almost be synonymous. Now I want to share with you a quote from the UU Capital News column dated May 2012 that addresses this issue. Our call as spiritually mindful people is to engage our hands in building a more just and compassionate world. For the only hands that God has are ours. Ours are the hands that feed a child, that embrace the grieving, that give shape to community. All religions emphasize compassion and a concern that goes beyond our own personal narrow interests. Jesus of Nazareth taught that it was not saying, "Lord, Lord," but giving care to the less fortunate that mattered at the end of the day. The Bodhisattva vow is to work for the end of suffering until all sentient beings are freed. Jewish prophets challenged secular powers that did not take seriously their duty to the well-being of the less fortunate. One of the 5 pillars of Islam is giving a portion of one's worldly goods to the poor. To say service is our prayer means that we serve in awareness that we are interconnected with all beings. It means that being of use can transform us, can give our lives a context of meaning to anchor us in a chaotic world. Recognizing service as a spiritual discipline, we see it as a form of prayer, an activity that connects us to deep roots of wholeness, meaning, and creativity within and among us. I think that's an excellent description. And I would love to claim authorship, but I can't. As I said, that is a quote from the UU Capital News column of May 2012. Even to my utter personal delight, the use of the word God and the reference to Jesus of Nazareth were all not from me, but from UU sources. In the beginning, the prayer that we currently use as our aspirations in company with many other UU congregations, was the covenant prayer written by the Reverend L. Griswold Williams. Reverend Williams was an itinerant Universalist preacher who wrote the prayer as the foundation for his work with several congregations that he pastored. We tend to think of things as being Unitarian, and we all stop short of saying the whole mouthful of, 6 or more syllables, Unitarian, Universalist. But every once in a while, the Universalists pop up in a significant way, and this is one of them. Its Universalist heritage is seen in the original opening line. The original opening line of what Reverend Williams wrote is, "Love is the doctrine of this church." We have adapted it for our use, as have many other UU congregations. For some churches, it's still a covenant, the foundation upon which their congregational lives rest. For others, like us, it's been labeled Aspirations, something to guide us and to work toward. Both are valid uses of Williams' Universalist pastorate and his covenant prayer. Now, I said a few weeks ago that social justice and service are not exactly the same thing. They aren't. Social justice is only one form, even though it has many applications, of service. Social justice makes us feel good. It means we stand for the right things. Service has a bit less glory built into it. Instead of leveling the playing field for the sake of justice, service tilts the playing field for the advantage of those in need. Both social justice and service are good and right and very much needed in our world. But we, for some reason, we rarely speak about service, except once every Sunday in our affirmation. We need to. We need to train ourselves to perceive need and respond to it as the way in which we connect with and build our world. We need to genuinely embrace service as our prayer in all of its many layers of meaning. So go home, get connected, go out and do something to help someone else. We will all be better for it. Shalom. Now, we actually have a couple of minutes. Thoughts, questions, responses? Kathy, do you mind taking the mic? Where did I put it?
I don't know.
It is now. Melinda and then Judy has.
Well, not so much about service, but when you were talking about prayer and the ways that we pray, I was reminded of an amazing study done years ago by a surgeon who said, I'm really science-based, what's this business about praying for somebody? And he actually formed a group of people who would pray for some of his patients and not others, without the patients even knowing if they were being prayed for. And yet they recovered more fully and more quickly because they were being prayed for.
Right.
I'm amazed at how few people are here today. And I wonder if the topic had something to do with it. It seems strange to me.
I have to say, Judy, that I share your question because there is something about the words that just sounds intimidating to many of us. I will share with you, though, that the sermon topic was not my idea. I was asked by a member of the congregation to address this and make it the focus of a sermon so that we could all have a better understanding and base to move from when we say these words every Sunday. I will be curious to see how many people sneak a peek online. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you all very much for your participation. I'm going to invite you now, I believe on the back side of your bulletin, to stand and sing our closing hymn with me. If you are a music person, the melody is at number 378. It's a little chorus. The music is commonly known as the Tallis Canon, and we will sing. If you turn to 378, you'll discover there's half a dozen options of little verses to sing with this chorus. So we're going to use the ones that are on our page. Are we good? May we become more self-aware, learn how to show how much we care, live daily showing our belief, so others have their just relief. May we reach out to those in need, restrain ourselves from selfish greed, share what we have and who we are, providing service near and far. May service be our deepest prayer, our minds and hearts be joined in care, our actions matching our ideals, till from distress our world is healed. Thank you, and if you will join me now in extinguishing our chalice. The words are either in your bulletin or on your screen if you are looking at this online. We hold our chalice flame in our hearts, even as we extinguish it from sight. May it be made visible in our lives, singly and together in community. Shalom and amen. May what you do for others enrich yourself and your world. May you know yourself to be a vital part of the world we live in. May service in all of its aspects become the prayer of your heart. Shalom and amen.